The Scots pine, this rather wild, ungainly-looking tree, is one of the most mysterious parts of the ley system. From the time of Alfred Watkins onwards, it's been noticed that compact clumps of this tree very often fall on the ancient alignments, yet the how and the why remain elusive. The trees obviously can't be prehistoric in themselves, and while they may produce descendants, it's hard to see how a discrete clump would remain at one spot for thousands of years. Alfred Watkins realised this, and for this reason only gave pine clumps the status of confirmation points, though he noted the frequency of their occurrence. Tony Wedd of Chiddingstone, Kent, also noticed them in his area, and wrote about them in his booklet Skyways and Landmarks, which not only brought the idea of the connection between leys and UFOs, but also created the present-day inquiry which has come to be called Earth Mysteries. Finally, I've also noticed them in virtually every area of the country I've visited, and they always seem to fall on leys. Is this simply because they seem to be attracted to high points where ley marks often occur, or is there something more? This programme illustrates some alignments in an area where they seem to predominate, possibly because prehistoric sites are rare, my own home area of Addlestone in Surrey.
This map shows the type of area we're considering. It's moderately built up, but still with some quite large tracts of countryside. But there are only two known prehistoric sites shown, the tumulus on Chobham Common and the hill fort of St Anne's Hill near Chertsey. Only one of the churches is really old, St Mary's at Thorpe. Yet we still have an alignment system, and it's made up mainly of pine clumps. The first line we'll look at is the alignment of 3 clumps with the tumulus at Chobham. This also passes through 2 major crossroads and a multi-junction of tracks further east. The clump which has been called the Samaritan Centre clump is a beautiful example of a small clump of Scots pines. It stands at the bottom of a private garden near the Addlestone Samaritan Centre in Ledger Drive. The Sprat's Lane clump is a mixed clump of pines and deciduous trees near the boundary of Addlestone and Ottershaw, well visible from the road. When we enter the clump, we see it as a startling crater-like depression in the centre. This was caused by the excavation of clay in the 19th century for brickmaking or pottery. So obviously the trees in the centre can be dated to that time. But was the clump here before that? We don't know. The clump here at Ether Hill in Ottershaw is visible for many miles around. It can be seen from St Peter's Way, the new M25 link road, and when we approach it closely we see how the pines project above the lines of the other trees there, forming a clear landmark. It adjoins the Ottershaw Memorial Fields public park and is a very pleasant spot. At the top of the hill there is what seems to be an oval-shaped earthwork, although it's not mentioned on the map as a prehistoric site. It's similar to the one at Gill's Lap. Here one of the pines has gone. And a new one is taking its place. The tumulus unfortunately proved inaccessible, but I found 2 other clumps on the way to try and find it, which I later found aligned on it from the north. This one here has a very appropriate name, Barrow Hills. The alignment also goes through churches at Wraysbury and Egham to the north, and 2 cross tracks to the south. This is a very, very beautiful little clump also on that alignment. Christchurch Ottershaw is a Victorian building, but it occupies a very commanding hilltop position with conifers behind it. It's on two of our alignments. One goes through the Samaritan Centre clump, a crossroads to Weybridge Church. The other goes through the Sprat's Lane clump, through St Paul's Church, Addlestone, and St Augustine's Church, Addlestone. It's the second of these that we'll follow now.
The lay next passes through the Sprat's Lane clump that we've already seen, and then comes to this church here at Addlestone, St Paul's, another Victorian building, but as we see, also has the presence of Scots pines.
The line continues through St Augustine's Church, Addlestone, an even more modern building built in 1939, and there's no record of any previous building on the site. Yet several lays cross here, the one which is perhaps most significant to me being the Midsummer Sunrise line, which goes from the church through my house. The line we're following continues across the River Bourne at this point to a moat about a half a mile away, and eventually passes through the Diana Fountain in Bushy Park.
Another of the lines runs apparently coincidentally along this stretch of road through the Plessy factory at Addlestone to Woburn Hill. Despite the apparent coincidence of this, I've always felt this stretch of road a very peaceful and powerful one, and one which I've sought out many times while working at Plessy.
The line continues over Woburn Hill, Addlestone, to St Anne's Hill. And here from the road at Woburn Hill, the vast bulk of the hill fort can be clearly seen. Sunset at Woburn Hill. The lay continues through this roundabout below Woburn Hill, once a crossroads, and then through Chertsey Catholic Church, relatively modern of course. Another coincidence. And the line continues to the northern part of St Anne's Hill fort here. The ramparts of the fort are still clearly visible. And there are many Scots pines on the summit. But here at the northern end, there's a particularly pronounced clump of them, and it's here that I believe the lay passes through. The other line passing through this point passes across this lovely vista, going through the ancient church at Thorpe, the one at Stoke Poges, famous for the elegy in a country churchyard, the cross tracks and the crossroads. Coming southwards, that same line passes through this lovely little clump at the junction of Green Lane in Addlestone. To recap, we have this system of alignments. The first one we followed, from the Samaritan Centre clump to Sprat's Lane, Ether Hill clump, and on to the tumulus at Chobham Common, which was unfortunately inaccessible. The second one, Ottershaw, through the Sprats Lane clump again, to St Paul's Church and St Augustine's Church. This line here, which comes up along the stretch of road and Plesses, through the summit of Woburn Hill, through Chertsey Catholic Church to St Anne's Hill, and we have the one coming south, coming from Stoke Poges Church to the north, through Thorpe Church, St Anne's Hill again, and the small clump at Green Lane, Addlestone, and further down here to another church at West Byfleet. The significance of the Scots pine, seen here and at many other different parts of the country, would seem unmistakable. Yet many lay hunters would dismiss these alignments out of hand. Some might even say they bring the subject into disrepute by lining up so many prehistoric places. Yet there seem to be rather too many coincidences here, and all over the country we have evidence of pine clumps and relatively recent churches aligning with good lays made up of ancient sites. Very many barrows, for instance, have Scots pine clumps crowning them. What can we make of it all? It's almost as if the system were a living thing, capable of regenerating itself as older parts fall into disrepair, both by subconsciously impelling people to build and trees to grow at certain specific places. Of course, such an idea would pose a whole host of other questions, but that's often the case when we consider the mysteries of this world.